this morning. There's a lot I want to talk about. And although it says fiber, fats, and protein up there, this is the time of year when we all do our New Year's resolutions, right? Well, for years I didn't because I wanted to buck the status quo and not like wait till January 1 to have resolutions to do better, be better, whatever. But this year it just all kind of coincided that my want to change things up happened right around the first. So I want to talk about New Year's resolutions. I also want to talk about fiber, protein, and fats in relation to insulin resistance. Some new stuff I've learned, and I'm always trying to learn and grow. And so if I'm wrong about something, I'm going to admit to it. Or if I've learned something new that says different than what I knew before, I'm going to admit to that too. But that's part of life, and that's part of science, you guys. When we're learning and growing, science is continually, the more we dive into things, the more we learn and grow. So let's have a conversation today, because I want to help everybody out. So, how many of you guys type in a one if you guys made a New Year's resolution for your health? Type in a one if you made a New Year's resolution for your health. And then maybe let's just dive into and say, how many of you guys feel like in this year you really want to change up your income? Type in a two. Or it's maybe just your connections with family, friends, and people. Type in a three. A lot of us have made one of those three resolutions for this year. So one is for health, two is for wealth, three is for connections with family, friends, and just people in general. How many of you guys did do that? Does anybody still make resolutions? I know there's people that do. If you guys have, let me know. So I think I kind of have all three of those resolutions in my bag. So I'm going to start at the bottom. Yeah, I have ADHD. I'm a little bit autistic. Relationships are a struggle for me. I love people. When I make a connection, it's there for life. But getting to that connection is really tough for me sometimes. And so I'm trying to find tools and ways to help me be able to connect more with people, because deep down I want that, but it just is difficult. So if you guys are ready to connect with people this year, I think this has everything and nothing to do with our health, right? The more we connect with people in a healthy way, the more we don't leave ourselves feeling all alone, um, the healthier we become all around. And so I think those connections are really important, but healthy connections. Hey, Teresa from Cameroon, it's so good to see you this morning. You guys, we need these connections in our life, but we need to make sure they're healthy connections. So it's time to start understanding narcissistic abuse, people who are just using you for what you bring, but not bringing anything to you. And then diving more of our attention and energy into the people who are uh, giving to us. So that's number one. And again, that's kind of a little side thing. The wealth part, like, I think most of us want to have more wealth. I've struggled with that this last year because I have a lot of stories about wealth because I'm Native American, and there's a lot of things Dad passed down to me about, not owning land and a number of different things. And I also struggled with like being selfish, wanting that much wealth. But then when I started looking at, well, what can I do for my family and my kids if I allow wealth into my life? I have a grandson who has a disability that I would love to be able to do so much more for. And I have three other grandchildren who are beautiful that I'd love to spend more time with. So, wealth for me is all about that, again, connection, family, and what can I do for my family. But now we come back to the first one that I talked about. I'm so excited for you too. And let's, can we find time? Today's a little bit packed, Teresa. Can we find time tomorrow to talk and chat? Would you like to do that? Because I would love to chat with you tomorrow. If I have time this afternoon, I would love to do that too. But I've got a lot of stuff going on this morning. I do want to connect with you. I'm really excited for you. So let's do that. Now, when we get to health, these resolutions for health, you guys, I kind of went reverse order of that, all of those things, because we often put our health at the back burner of everything else that we're trying to do. And yet when we look at our health, if we have great health, it's going to trickle down into everything else. When our health is good, our mental clarity is good, we're not so focused on just trying to feel good that we are feeling good. We can then release energy into everyone else, but we have to pour into ourselves first. And I think a lot of us are not doing that because we're always so pressured to do things for everyone else. And I also struggled this last year with, finding out what I'm doing for me and what I'm doing because I feel like everybody else wants me to do it. And I'm going to encourage everyone to tap into your needs and do what's right for you first, um, as in a healthy way, not just like abuse people for your own benefit, but pay attention to your needs and give some credence to that. So now, with all of that said, I'm doing a couple of things this year for health, and I know a couple of you guys are joining in with me. Um, some of those things, Sean, yeah. So the system that I talk about, Sean, if you want to hang out, actually addresses all of those things in one simple system without adding a bunch of other things in. Because I used to take loads of supplements, all of these things that are, I don't know that I ever took soursop, but different teas and black seed oil, all the stuff. And I had this whole counter full of all the stuff that I would do for my health. And now I've just made it much more simple and actually reversed this when all those things were not happening for me. So let's go back to the health part. So I know New Year's resolutions with health. So I'm trying to get understanding inflammation in my body, understanding insulin resistance, how it's impacted my body over time. I want to get my health in order. So we're going to do some more extended fasting. I know some have already started. I had talked about doing a 36 and 12 fast, which is an every other day fast, basically. Dr. Mindy Pelz talks about it. Did it once last year, and it did great for me in helping heal up some of my gastritis issues and a number of things. But those of you who follow a lot, I was live Tuesday night with a doctor that I'm working with now who also does the system, and we're having me do a 48-hour fast every week. Now, if you come on Tuesday nights, he's going to explain more about why we do that and how beneficial it is. So follow that. But if you wanna join in with us, follow me. We're going to start talking about that. He has a great program set up around the 48-hour fast, and you can find his information on my page too. But in the 48-hour fast, I'm taking advantage of that, allowing my body to become more metabolically flexible. So that's number one thing I'm doing for the next 2 months. Minimum is I'm doing 48-hour fast once a week. Hopefully for me, it's going to be Monday, Tuesday. That's when I've planned out. This week, it actually, because New Year's Day was Monday, I started it and did it Tuesday, Wednesday. You guys, with the system, the Unimate and the balance, I just did the Unimate during the fast. It actually made it so easy. I didn't really start feeling hunger or even focusing on food until about hour 45. But by then, I'm like, it's just 3 more hours, and I've gone the full 48. When we're doing some of these things, you guys, we want to, hi Nadira, we need to start focusing on what we're gaining and stop focusing on what we're losing. So just from a subconscious place, from a mindset place, because I used to coach this too, when you're so focused on the food that you're not getting, and I do this too, when we're focused on what we're missing out on, that becomes the whole focus, and now it becomes harder. When you start focusing on, oh, I only have this 48 hours, tomorrow night at 6 p.m., I'm going to sit down and have this amazing meal with my family, but I'm going to have done all of this great stuff for my body, clean up my liver, help some autophagy and some gut reset go on, help my skin, help all of this nutritional problems that we've built into our lives. That's worth it for me. Is it tough for me sometimes to do the fasting, you guys? I know I've talked about 5, 7, and 10-day fasts that I've done. It's not easy. No, it's not. I'm not going to lie to you and say that any of it was ever easy, but I just learned to focus on the benefit that was gaining so that I could actually get that benefit. I saw a great video just the last few days. I found a new guy on YouTube that shows up in my feed, and he did a great video on 10 years of sacrifice for 60 years of benefit, or 10 years of benefit for 60 years of pain. So for this, we're talking only about 48 hours. 48 hours of what you might perceive as pain to get great benefit, or just enjoy yourself for those 48 hours and pay for your health and the rest of it. Does everyone need to do a 48-hour fast? Probably not. But if you're worried about your health and you want to get better, maybe look into it. If you want to know more about it, ask me. I'll talk more about it. For the average person, I would say for this metabolic flexibility, for getting your insulin under control, a 16-hour and 8-hour fast and an 8-hour eating window is probably perfect. So I want to dive back and talk about insulin resistance a little now that I'm getting on track finally. Insulin resistance, I just did a video yesterday where, I have a lot of analogies because I love visual representations of things. So I want you guys to think about this. When we eat food, that creates energy in our system. The primary source of that energy is glucose. Now, every cell in our system, every single cell needs glucose to function and do its thing, right? Insulin is an energy transport. But in this way, let's think about it as, so insulin brings the energy to the cell, and now it rings the doorbell. Says, hey, I have energy for you. I want to deliver this to you. And so the cells open the door when the doorbell is rang, and the energy comes in, and insulin's like, hey, good job, let's go on. And it takes energy to other places. But we're eating so often, and we're listening to these people that tell you to eat every 2 hours, and that's devastating for your metabolism. And then we're eating processed foods and foods that are turning into that glucose way too quickly because a number of nutrients have been stripped out. So now insulin, our food, is turning into glucose. We have a high amount of glucose in our system. So insulin is ringing that doorbell constantly, all the time, ringing the doorbell. And the doorbell starts to get worn out, and the cells can't hear that ringing anymore. So they're not opening the door. So they're not getting in the energy, and now we start to have all of these problems going on. That's what's happening with insulin resistance. So that's just a different analogy to explain it for some people. Maybe you needed a different way to hear it. But so think of insulin as the doorbell, the guy that rings the doorbell. But when that doorbell gets rung out because it's being rung so often, the cells just don't hear it. And then we have headaches, we have fatigue, we have joint loss, we have muscle loss, we have Alzheimer's, we have all of these things, PCOS and erectile dysfunction, we have hormonal dysregulation throughout the body, and it's all because insulin has wore out that doorbell. So in order to get that doorbell ringing correctly again, we've kind of got to stop using it all the time and allow it to be used when it's necessary. Used when it's necessary. Like, we don't want people ringing. Like, how can you imagine being in your house and having your doorbell rung all day long? Just all day long. Ding dong, ding dong, ding dong. You would be like, shh, to rip that doorbell out. I don't even want it. So that's what's happening inside our body with insulin resistance. And yes, vertigo is something, dizziness and fainting can happen with blood sugar dysregulation, which happens when we have too much insulin in the system. It can cause that. Am I going to tell you that it's your cause? No, I can't do that, obviously, but it can. So I had vertigo so bad that it was getting scary for me to even drive, because I would be driving and it would feel like, what I would say is, like, it felt like my head was half full of water and somebody just shook my head really hard. And now I have all this like that going on, and I'd have to pull over and stop, and I'd feel like I was going to pass out, throw up, whatever. I don't have those episodes anymore. I don't have them. I have a friend who was diagnosed with Meniere's disease. After listening to her for a little bit, I encouraged her to start the system. She no longer has symptoms of the Meniere's disease. It's crazy, right? Now, Dr. Jones was talking the other night about how science, we don't know everything yet, and science is uncovering things. And I love Dr. Bickman, who wrote this book, Why We Get Sick. And he brings up all the time, this book is a little older, but on Twitter I follow him, and he's always posting new science up about insulin resistance and the links. So the more they dive into our diseases and disorders, Um, with the focus on, is there a link to insulin resistance, the more they're finding these links, and that yes, this one thing is actually at the root of almost all of our disease and disorder. Yeah, so Hakuna Matatas, if that's the case, let's talk about, I'm going to get to that really quick. So let's look it up. The book is actually, if you guys go to my profile and take a look there, you'll find some red lights. Right under that is a link that gets you to my landing page. And there's the system that I use there, but there's also at the very bottom of all that stuff is my recommendations. You can find the book there along with a couple of other books I read, like The Obesity Code, The Diabetes Code, Gene Eating by Dr. Yao. All of that's listed there. I don't sell them, but that's just so you guys can find the stuff that I talk about all the time in one place. So there's that. Now, we can talk about some of those links in a minute if you want to hang out and ask me, about some of these things. I will do my best to explain how they're linked to insulin resistance, but everything on this list is linked to insulin resistance. And doctors and metabolic scientists are now starting to say if we address this one thing called insulin resistance, we can get better with many of these things. Is it going to cure it all the time? No, I'm not going to make that claim. But are there strong links to all of these and insulin resistance? Absolutely, especially the hormonal things like PCOS and erectile dysfunction. They used to say that it was a genetic disorder, and now they're leaning into, hey, this is a metabolic disorder. They're actually metabolic infertility issues. They're not just a genetic issue. Now, genetically, are some people more prone to becoming insulin resistant than others? Yeah, there's that piece. Absolutely, there's that piece. But what it really comes down to is the food we're eating and how often we're eating it, and what we can do. Now, we all live in this environment where our food is processed and this is what we have. So I'm not saying you have to go live on a farm in Arizona and eat everything that you grow and live that life, because we can't all do that, right? What I'm going to be talking about is a very natural and simple approach to helping this. Also, I want people to understand that I want you to, this is a big theme for me right now. I want you to be more self-reliant. My wish for you this year is that you become more self-aware and more self-reliant. So you're not relying on other people to tell you what's working for you, what's working in your body, what feels right for you. Because the truth is we all do have different genetic backgrounds. So what's working for me may not be what's the best for you in some of the ways. Like, we have people who talk about the carnivore diet, and for some people that works well for them. I spent a lot of time thinking about that this morning in my morning routine because I'm Native American. So, like, I love cranberries. My daughter-in-law doesn't like them. Partly it's a link to my roots because I'm Ojibwa from North Dakota. We originally came from the Great Lakes. We cultivated and used cranberries a lot. So there's a reason I like cranberries, because genetically my body loves them. It was built in. So I want you to know that, like, not everybody's going to love cranberries, and they're not going to do the same thing for everybody. Somebody from the islands might be more prone to other foods that are indigenous to them. I think that we have this food industry that has opened up this world of new foods for us, and that's great, and it's wonderful to have these new tastes and try new things. But I'm going to challenge you to understand that your genetics may be telling you that you need certain foods more than you need others. And to try those other foods might be great for you, and it might be wonderful once in a while. But I think we've gotten too flourishy with our food. And now it's so delectable that it becomes this thing that we have. And it's not just like a treat or a delicacy anymore. It's almost like we have this need for all of this different food, and that's contributing. So if we can simplify our food and go back to what we're supposed to be eating for us, then we might start to find some better health. That's my take on it. From reading, things like Eat Right for Your Blood Type and the Gene Eating and Why Calories Don't Count, and Eat Right for Your Body Type was another book I read. So there's all of that, you guys. And it doesn't have to be difficult. You don't have to go do all of that stuff, but just take a look. Like, I've never been really drawn to pastas. I'm not Italian. I don't eat a lot of rice, you know. We had wild rice, so I do eat that from time to time. But just pay attention to what's working in your body and stop giving over your power to everyone else. One of the things that Dr. Jones said on our Tuesday night call that I found really amazing was he said, stop asking for permission. Stop asking for permission. So well, I'm going to stop real quick, and then we're going to get into fiber, fats, and protein. I'm going to tell you what I've just learned that just kind of shifted my thinking a little bit, and we're going to go over that with some New Year's resolutions. But I had almost all of these symptoms, guys, in the last 2.5 years. I've cleared up most of them. I'm working with Dr. Jones because I have some insulin resistant. That means I can't get some body fat off. We're working on that. I've lost 50 pounds. And I want to lose about another 50 actually. So we're working on that and figuring out why my body is still staying insulin resistant. One of those things is my thyroid, although it's in normal range for most people, it might be a little off. It's in normal range for the first time in my life since starting this system. So the system is this. You see me taking sips of this tea. I drink this tea every morning. It gives me mental clarity. It gives me energy. It helps me with fat burning. It helps me stay in a fast because it's shutting down hunger both in my gut and in my brain. It's giving my brain nutrients that it needs. So that's where part of the mental clarity is coming from. Induced mood. It does have a little bit of caffeine in it, but the caffeine is changed molecularly because of these three things called adaptogens that are present in this that are not, two of them are not present in coffee. One is present in less amounts, but this does a lot of things. It has anti-cancer, antioxidant properties. I'm going to be doing some videos. Yesterday, Dr. Ahmed, a cardiovascular doctor who uses this and recommends it to all of his patients, was on. And he talked to me about 13 benefits of yerba mate. So I'm going to be breaking down those benefits this month, 13 different ways that yerba mate is really great for you. This yerba mate tea is highly concentrated, so about 375 times more potent than the average yerba mate you get. Plus, it's been purified, so toxins, molds, all of that have been removed. It's a really great tea that helps with satiety, weight loss, and mood. Then the second part of the system that we're going to talk about is this. And I want to talk about this a lot today because I'm reading the book Fiber Fueled by, I think it's Will Bolt. I can never say his name right. Bolsowitz. And so there's some things in there I agree with, some things I don't. And that's the interesting part, you guys. In life, you need to take in what feels right for you, what works for you, and utilize that. But this fiber packet, this has more than fiber in it. It has prebiotic. It is prebiotics because fiber is prebiotics. But it has plant nutrients in it. It has vitamins and minerals that are all aimed at metabolism. So what this does is it slows down the delivery of sugars into the system so we don't have this huge insulin spike. It helps me feel full before I ever start eating, so I eat less in a sitting. It holds onto that food and delivers it through like a time release capsule into your system. So instead of eating and a half hour later you're hungry again, you eat and you feel satiated or full much longer, slowing down this whole cycle of continuous eating that we've fallen into which is because of the excess food and the stripping of fiber and stuff from our food. If you guys want to know about that, put a 1 in. I'll talk more about that. But our food is imperfect. I think we can all agree. So what the system really is doing is putting back what we need. And that's all I did to reduce and remove all of this. So I can Baki tube. So let's take a look at that, you guys. To get the fiber, I want you to understand this. I'm an authorized distributor for those products. I love talking about insulin resistance. I talk about it way more than I talk about the product, and I need to let you guys know what the solution is more. So let's take a look at that. I'm going to show you where to find it. So if you just go to my profile picture, and I'll drop the one. Okay, so I will talk more about the food. Okay. Let's get over to this. I want to show the guys on TikTok where to get it, and then I'm going to drop you guys, why am I so dysfunctional sometimes? Set it. Wait. There we go. Nope. Man, I just settings. I can't figure it out this morning, you guys. Enhance effects. There we go. I was laughing at myself this morning because this happens to me every once in a while. Like I've done this 100,000 times and then all of a sudden I'll forget how to do it. So you go to my profile picture up top of this live, a white box is going to come up, tap that again, and then you're going to get to this page. So on this page, you're going to see these red lights. Right below there is a link. When you click on that link, it's going to take you to this. When you get here, the top one is the system I use. Okay. So you click on that, and that's going to take you. One of the important things I want you to understand is we haven't talked about it yet, but this takes you directly to the Unicity website, but it links you to me so that I know you've ordered. I can call you, I can coach you, I can help you. You're not just buying a product and then being left alone. If you need more help, use it. If you don't want more help, that's fine too. But then you just click on buy now. And right here, you're going to get 30, because I get this question all the time. Yes, you get 30 tea and you get 60 of the pre-meal drink in one packet. The pricing is the system, not just the individual. It's the system. So the tea, we'll talk about that in a second, but that's where you're going to get it. Now, when you order, I want you to understand why, not to go through Amazon, eBay, Walmart. There's nobody authorized there. There's pirated product, there's expired product, you're not getting the coaching, you're paying more for it. You get these 3 guarantees when you purchase through someone like me, and that is you get the 90-day money back guarantee. So you guys try this for 90 days. It's real food. It's giving you health by giving you what your body needs. So that's going to take a little bit of time for some people. Give it 90 days. At the end of 90 days, you're like, this didn't work for me? Fine. You let the company know, they refund you the money, and you're good to go. But at 90 days, when you're starting to feel better and you understand what's happening, then you're like, oh, okay. Now, the second one is you get the low price guarantee. If you buy on Amazon, eBay, Walmart, you're not getting that. And then the third one is the quality guarantee. When you buy from us, we've triple tested this stuff so that we know that it's the right component. Because you guys, with herbals, I didn't understand this, but with herbals there are some things that look and taste and feel like the component that we're trying to get, and some companies don't care, and so they're shipping you out something that's marked as yerba mate tea, but it might be something other than that. So we test it to make sure it's the right thing. We tested at 3 points throughout the production so that we make sure that you're getting what you need, that what we say is in there is in there. So all of that you get when you buy through the link. Now, back to the stuff. I hope that makes sense. Let me get the link over here for Facebook. So on there, you're going to also see probiotics and the cleanse. So that's part of my New Year's resolution. I do the cleanse about twice a year anyway. Let's start to talk about fiber, protein, and fats because they're really important with insulin resistance. I might start right with protein. Let's start with protein really quick first. So I totally believe through everything that I've read and the science that I've seen that we do need good amounts of protein. Will Bolsowitz, I think, in the book Fiber Fueled, he was talking about how the U.S. takes in more protein than any other country, and I would probably agree with that. He's talking about, because he's a plant-based person, so that's great for him. But I don't think you have to be plant-based for everyone. I do think that a number of us need more protein. I went vegan for over a year and I just was not feeling well. That's where I talk about do what's right for you. And that's part of what got me looking at my own genetics, since I'm Native American and I know that we were hunters and I know that we thrived on, we had some fruits and vegetables that we ate, but not the kind that you guys are getting. So I'm still more carnivorous than vegetarian. That just wasn't my life. Now, other areas, you thrive more on vegetables than on protein. So do that. But I believe that most of us are not getting in enough protein in today's world. So protein is good. He talks about it in a negative way in the book a little bit, that we're getting too much. He talks about some of the things that, old science was saying that these proteins were causing insulin resistance and diabetes. And yet, conversely, Dr. Bickman just posted some papers where they're doing research again now, and that research is saying that those proteins are actually good in helping you prevent diabetes and insulin resistance. And we're talking in his book, talking directly about heart disease, because insulin resistance and heart disease are highly linked. So my belief is we need protein, so I prioritize protein. This year, I'm doing this 48-hour fast. Then I'm going to have a day where I'm giving my body gentler forms of food. So, you guys, I promise I'm getting this. I'm just going to get this out to you guys the way it is right now, and then we'll update it later. I've created some protein shakes. I'm not normally a shake person, but they're high in protein. They have a good amount of fats in them, a healthy amount of fats in them. They keep you satiated, but they're upping that level of protein and nutrients in your body. Easy to digest. I've tested them out. I stay extremely full. I think on these shakes that I'm doing, and it's just mostly real foods and then some proteins that we have for this company, but it keeps me full longer than even some meals. Then the next 3 days, I'm going to focus on keeping my protein level up and eating more vegetables and some fruits. Then the last day, the last day of the 7 days, I'll be transitioning back to low sugar, having one real meal and getting stuff that's easier to digest before I go back into the fast. If you guys want to know that system, let me know. So now Lila talked about the food, and I totally skipped that because I got off track. So let's talk about that. Our food now is so much different than what it used to be. And we're being encouraged to eat too often, and that's causing disease and problem for us. Our foods have been stripped of things like fiber, enzymes, proteins, nutrients. And so when we think about our digestive system, it's really the mouth to the butt, right? So we take food in, it starts to digest, we start to create enzymes when we chew, when we masticate, and then it starts to go down through our system, it hits the gut, more enzymes and whatnot are created in the gut, then it passes through the intestine, and the intestine is where those nutrients and stuff really start to get absorbed. So the reason I don't normally like shakes is because we're bypassing this mastication, so we're not getting some of those enzymes. So I think that if we can eat whole foods as much as possible, then do that, because that action of chewing actually adds to your whole gut health. So do that. Now, with those foods being stripped of all of these fibers and nutrients, the fibers actually that are supposed to be present in our foods help slow down the sugars as they go into our system and help slow down the release of some other things. It's not like those fat blockers that would just take everything and dump it out of your system, and now you're becoming nutrient deficient. Fibers don't make you nutrient deficient, they just slow it down. So instead of it hitting your system like a freight train, it's time releasing the food into your system. But even when we look at raw and organic foods, they've still been modified to make them easier to grow and to grow quicker and to be bigger, delectable, more juicy so that we want to eat them. So something that used to be the size of this, a peach that used to be the size of this, is now the size of my fist. Well, you got to think about that. A peach that's this size is likely more crunchy, a little bit more bitter, a little bit sweet, a little bit bitter, but that's because it has more fiber in it. The peaches that we're getting now have some fiber in it, but they've modified a lot of that out, and now we have more of the glucose and or starch in foods that are making them so big because we're pulling the fiber away, and it's allowing those foods to grow big, and it's delivering as glucose into your system much quicker than it was ever meant to, and that's part of the problem. Then now you're hungry all the time, so you're being told to eat smaller meals but eat every 2 hours. Well, science shows that when people are following that eat every 2 hours, which should be about every 6 times a day, people are actually eating 12 to 16 times a day. So now you've taken something that's supposed to be healthy and you're just continually eating. And so remember when I said that every time we eat, it delivers energy, and every time we are doing energy into the system, we're creating insulin, and that high load of insulin throughout the day is what's causing insulin resistance. So what we need to do is pay attention to the foods we eat. Yes, absolutely. Eat more whole foods. And when we're talking about fiber and that type of, and fiber is carbohydrates, you guys. So it's really carbohydrates, protein, and fats. So Vegetables and fruits are carbohydrates. You want to focus on the dark green vegetables that grow above ground for healthy amounts of fiber that are not going to spike your insulin as much. When we look at root vegetables, those are higher in starch and they tend to spike your insulin more. Can you have them? Yes. Just don't make them the bulk of everything you eat. So I used to love broccoli and I don't really anymore. I don't know what that shift was. My body must have changed. But asparagus and green beans and those things are also great sources of fiber in your diet. Um, and now, so we've talked about protein. We'll talk about fats in a minute. Fiber is key, you guys. I've had videos where I talked about it as a superfood, and it really is. I'm also going to be doing some videos on the benefits of fiber, and I'll get those up. I'm really trying to get those done this week. But fiber is present in different forms, right? So every food has different forms of fiber. We need a specific type of and combination of fibers to help reduce the blood sugar. Now, if you're like me and you just in today's world don't have time to sit down and eat whole plates full of these um, dark green vegetables, and I'm not talking about lettuce because lettuce surprisingly is very low in fiber. So that salad you're eating before your meal to think you're pumping up your fiber, unless you're putting things in there like onions and radishes and all of that, you're really not getting a great amount of fiber. Iceberg lettuce, you guys, I learned a long time ago. I don't use iceberg lettuce anymore. It's basically nutrient. Almost, I'm going to say this, and it's kind of inflammatory. It's like anyway, it's nutrient deficient. It's nutrient zero to me. So it's a lot of water. It's very little fiber. It doesn't have a lot of nutrients in it. So there's no real need for it in my diet. I would rather have spinach than iceberg lettuce anytime. Spinach, at least you're getting some nutrients and a better amount of fiber. Okay, but fiber, you guys, one of the things I'm learning today, because people have asked me about probiotics, and I've always said, just have prebiotics and let them build your probiotics. That works in a perfect world, but what I'm learning now in the research and the studies that I'm doing right now is this. In today's world, throughout these things, like especially drugs, like how many of you guys have been on an antibiotic ever in your life? Especially things like clarithromycin or, oh, come on, it just skipped my brain. But antibiotics. How many of you guys have been on antibiotics before? What I want you to understand is if you've had even one round of antibiotics, and I knew this, but I guess I just didn't put two and two together because my brain is working. Good morning, Jason. When we have those antibiotics, they're meant to go in and kill off those negative biotics in our system that are causing us problems, right? But what happens is they're not selective. So they end up killing off a good deal of your probiotics or your positive biotics in your gut. And now that can take 4 to 6 months to reset. In some cases, with some of these medications, it takes up to 4 years for those probiotics to regrow in your gut. But now they never regrow at the same amount that they were before. So even one round of antibiotics throughout your lifetime can start to disrupt your gut microbiome. When the gut microbiome is disrupted, it allows that negative gut microbiota to grow and take over. So think about things like C. diff, but also yeast. All of these things are now more prone in your gut, and you're having a harder time because your intestinal system is inflamed, and this flourishing of the negative microbiota is taking over. And every round of antibiotics, every round of that type of thing is causing that. Can cause a great deal of inflammation and pain. All of that can cause some insulin resistance or contribute to your insulin resistance as well. So I've always said to do this. This is actually a prebiotic that feeds your own gut probiotics. And I've never been a huge proponent of taking exogenous probiotics or just pills and probiotics. But after reading what I just read, I would say, and I actually just ordered some probiotics from our company, 11 very different beneficial probiotics, because understanding what I just learned from this doctor, that those rounds, and I've been on multiple rounds of antibiotics because I've had injuries and surgeries and whatnot, that in order to get my gut back to where it needs to be, I need to start introducing more probiotics into my system, not just feeding the ones that I have there. So I was already deciding to up my fiber intake to 3 times a day just because I want that extra fiber in my system. But now reading what I was just talking about, I'm more determined to do 3 packets of this a day. So I'll probably do a packet when I'm not eating, and then a packet when I am eating, just to help my gut flourish and help that turnover back into a more positive gut microbiome. When they do fecal transplants, that's what they're trying to get to. They're trying to understand that this person over here is sick and they're having problems, and they're maybe having IBS and Crohn's, and they're having autoimmune disease, and they're having a number of other things go on. They've started going to having, especially when somebody has C. diff going on, they'll take a fecal transplant. So they take the contents of the intestine of a healthy person who doesn't seem to have any of those problems, who's not having a metabolic deficiency problem, any of that, and they implant that fecal matter into the sick person. Sounds kind of gross, but what's happening is they're introducing a whole healthier set of microbiome into the person that's sick to allow those probiotics to grow in that person, and they've seen great results with it. So what are you going to do if you don't want to go in for a fecal transplant? You're going to start feeding the probiotics you have, and yes, I'm going to say I'm going to start taking some probiotics in this new year to help this process. By the way, if you're not having great probiotics in your system, and those negative biotics are taking over, you're going to have problems losing weight. So that hit home for me. Like if I'm doing everything else right, everything else seems to be getting better. My eyesight's gotten better. My bleeding teeth have gotten better. My PCOS is better. My thyroid is getting better. All of these things are getting better by doing this natural system, but I'm still having problems with weight. We're going to figure that out. Now, I had my gallbladder removed. That's part of it. So that's a whole other discussion. But you guys, those of you, especially, I'm going to talk to women who've had your gallbladder removed, understand that that's going to cause some thyroid dysregulation, and it's going to cause you to be more prone to being insulin resistant. So now you have to be even more diligent, or you're just going to pack on the weight. I will do some videos in exactly why that happens. But know that if you've had your gallbladder removed, you're going to have problems with obesity because of a number of things that happen when that's gone. But I also want you to understand that when your gallbladder is gone, it means that you've already done some damage to your liver. So you want to take care of your liver. My gallbladder was removed 2 years ago, and that's when my weight loss stalled. So we're addressing that. One of the things that you can do, and I don't do as well on remembering it, but doing some bile salts before you eat will help, because you probably have noticed you can't eat very much or you get really sick. I'm realizing now that I'm not doing dairy, as in ice cream, anymore at all, because that really triggers that. My gastritis has greatly improved since I have been following the system closer and just doing some things like cleanses, and now we're going to add probiotics and see what happens. So fasting is also key in this. Fasting is key because it's allowing that gut microbiome to reset a little bit. When we're continuously putting sugar in our system, we're continuously building that negative gut microbiome and allowing it to flourish above and beyond our positive gut microbiome. We need both in our system. We don't want to get rid of what I'm calling negative. We need that. But what's happened in today's world with antibiotics, with the food that we've eaten, all of that, we've had this turnover. Instead of there being a balance and us being healthy, and those bacteria doing all this they're supposed to, this bacteria that can cause all of this disease and inflammation has kind of taken over, and our probiotics, the ones that are really good for us, are now falling down. So you have inflammation, you have headaches, you get sick more often. All of these things happen. We need to get that back in order. So, yes, I'm going to add probiotics back into my life and see what that does over the next few months. And if that actually changes things, I'm probably going to say I'm a proponent of probiotics. But I'm a proponent of probiotics when you're very aware of what you're doing. So don't just think that just taking probiotics is going to help. You got to do the holistic approach. Start keeping those highly refined sugars down. Alcohol and stuff is not great either, but keep all of that down and start feeding your gut. You need to make sure that if you're putting probiotics in, you're giving food to do their job. So in the book about prebiotics, probiotics, and postbiotics. I haven't gotten that far yet, but he talks about how prebiotics plus probiotics equals the postbiotics, and the postbiotics are really what's doing the work. So if you're just adding prebiotics or postbiotics, either one, and you're not having them combined, then you're not getting the full benefit out of them. So prebiotics in this, and I love it because it's changed everything for me, but adding some probiotics back in is going to help dramatically too. So I've been talking for a long time. Does anybody have questions about anything that I've been talking about? I do want you to understand how important fiber is. So I'm going to be doing videos. You'll see videos coming out about Katerina asked the question. I'm more than happy to try and answer. But I'm going to be doing videos on the yerba mate and the fiber because that's the system that got my health back. And I want you to understand why it's working and why it's helping all of this. So what's your question, Katerina? I would love to address it and see what I can do to help. So while she's typing that in, if you guys are noticing any of these things on the list up here, those are all linked to insulin resistance. So if you have one thing, there's a likelihood, right? But if you're suffering with 2, 3, 4 of those, then I'm going to say overall, that's leaning that you actually have insulin resistance and you need to address it. And how are we going to address it? So you have insulin resistance and PCOS. You had gastric bypass in 2003, had your gallbladder removed last year. Okay, so let's go over some of the things, and then if there's more you want to say, let me know. But so let's go over some of this. You have insulin resistance and PCOS. Absolutely, insulin resistance causes PCOS, and I can dive in deeper to that. You had gastric bypass in 2003. I want to dive into that, and gallbladder removed last year. So if you've had insulin resistance and PCOS, which you probably had for a long time and nobody ever addressed it, that leads to this whole gallbladder problem. Your liver is overworked. If you're doing a lot of alcohol, obviously we know that that's causing alcoholic fatty liver. Fatty liver causes your gallbladder in many cases to go down. Now there's a couple of actions why your gallbladder gets full of bile. One of them has to do with insulin resistance. The other has to do with something that I don't ever dive into. But not all gallbladder problems are insulin resistance. A majority of them, I would say yes. So if your gallbladder's been removed and you have these other things, then I'm going to say, and you already know, that it's time to start addressing your insulin resistance. Now, gastric bypass and things like Mounjaro and tirzepatide and Ozempic and all those things, the reason I don't like them, not just the amount of damage that they can do to the body, but the fact that you're looking for a Band-Aid fix, and we all do it, so there's no judgment in this, okay? But when we do those things to get the weight loss, to get the numbers under control, and we don't address the root cause, being our food, then when you're off that round of Mounjaro, tirzepatide, whatever, when you've had the gastric bypass, you haven't changed anything. So you're going to go right back to where you were, and now you're sick again after you took those extreme measures. And the sad part is that most of the physicians who are dealing with those things are not addressing that. They're not educating you on, okay, fine, I'm going to give you Ozempic for a few months to help you get this weight off. But while you're doing that, we need to address all of this so that you'll stay healthy later. That's my problem, one of my big problems with those things. So the gastric bypass, I'm sorry you had to go through that. I've dealt with so many women. I don't think I've had very many men who've done gastric bypass, but they have iron absorption problems and they have so many other nutritional health problems after that surgery. And so it's a great quick fix, but is it a long-term solution? Probably not. And now you're suffering the ramifications of medical system that didn't educate you well. Okay, so inositol for PCOS. Um, I'm not very, let me write that down. And I'm going to tell you, I'm not very versed on inositol for PCOS because I've always just focused on the system that I do, which is a tea in the morning and a pre-meal drink before I eat, and addressing the metabolism and addressing these things up here. Fiber first, prioritize protein, and then fill with fats. And carbs isn't on here, but you can have them, just limit them. That's where I focus. I will look up and do some research on inositol because it's not the first time I've been asked, and I'm sorry I can't give you a great answer on that. My route around it is to put back in what's been stripped out and allow our metabolism to work correctly. So the more I read and research, even though Dr. Bickman and Dr. Bolsowitz would differ on some things like protein, they both agree on fiber being key to our metabolism, key to helping us get healthy. So that's where I would focus, is on a variety of fibers that are actually doing the job for you. And I'll look up the inositol today. It's a struggle. So Katerina, I'm going to encourage you to try the system. I was so sugar addicted when I started. I knew it, but I didn't want to face it, right? Like, I drove for Lyft and Uber. I was building a business as a life coach, talking about subconscious programming and all that. But driving, I didn't have a lot of healthy food available. I was doing it during COVID. And so it was like stop off for a soda and a candy bar, or sometimes a soda, a candy bar, and chips, sugar and salt, right? I knew it was happening. Don't want to listen to what's really happening. So you're right now craving sugar because of the growth of negative microbiome. They love sugar. It helps them grow. So there's that cue in your gut that you want more sugar. The sugar isn't keeping you satiated. It's causing the insulin resistance, which is causing you fatigue. And so then you crave sugar because you need energy and you think you want quick energy. And so that's what you're having, is a Snickers bar or a donut or whatever it is, or bread, croissants, whatever. That's giving you that energy back quickly. So what helped me get over that really is the system that I talk about. So Katerina, I'm going to show you this. This is what I would say, and then we're going to go into the diet, the dietary part of it. I hate to call it a diet, it's a lifestyle, but I want you to understand what's happening. When you eat sugar, it's converting so quickly, and the fiber is allowing it to dump through your system, so you have these energy highs and lows. You'll eat, you feel great, and then within a short period later, you're crashed, you're tired, you're feeling cold, you're having chills, you're dizzy, you're wanting to pass out. All of those things can happen, and it's this blood sugar dysregulation, these highs and lows of blood sugar. So what we want to do is slow that down. Stop eating so often, and that's hard when you're sugar addicted. I get it. I was there. So what we got to do is address that hunger part and start focusing on the foods that are going to get you to be more fat adapted instead of sugar adapted. So what I did, the only thing, because I'm pretty resilient, but I also have ADHD. So when I hit roadblocks, I tend to give up, but I'm really resilient. So I've done fasting. I've done a lot of things, but intermittent fasting sounded really tough to me in the beginning because of the amount of sugar addiction I had. Now, I just finished my tea this morning, and I actually have a second one that I'm having as I go out throughout the rest of my morning. The TY, it shuts down your hunger. It helps stop those sugar cravings. It helps you feel full. It's helping you produce ketones, which are helping pull fat from your body. But it's giving you mental energy and clarity. Part of the reason that you're sugar addicted is when you have these highs and lows of sugar. I always knew that the brain used up a lot of carbohydrates. Dr. Jones specified that for me the other night in our talk, and he said 25% of our carbohydrate intake actually goes to our brain. Our brain needs carbohydrates to function. So am I telling you go no carb? No, I'm not. But if we're resistant to those carbohydrates being taken up, you're going to have depression, anxiety, things like Alzheimer's and anger issues and all. We need to get that taken back up, the energy taken up into our brain. This has a component in it called chlorogenic acids that allows that to get to the brain and start. The chlorogenic acids is one of the few things that crosses the blood-brain barrier and allows your brain to start functioning more normally. So now your mood is lifted. Now you're not perceiving that you need energy because you're actually getting some energy to your brain. So you guys, when you're hungry, most of the time, it's because your brain feels tired and your body goes, oh, tired brain, we need carbohydrates. We need carbohydrates because we've got to be able to think and get this better. So now you're eating. But that eating all the time and those high glycemic foods that are high in sugars are causing the problem. So you're getting a temporary relief, but you're not getting real relief. So when you're tired, either in your body or in your brain, you're going to perceive that you need food, and that oftentimes is sugar because it's giving you that instant gratification. So part of it's going to be mindset, but the tea helps with that. The tea helps me so I'm not feeling hunger. That's how I just finished a 48-hour fast, because the tea shut my hunger down. I wasn't feeling hungry until about 45 and a half hours in. And then I was just like, it's 2.5 to 3 hours before I eat. You're there. Fine, you're there. And then we had chicken, like ground chicken tacos sauteed with onions and some cheese and a little bit of sour cream on top. Amazing. So high in protein is what I started with, that, but it was easily break down. So that helps. Then the fiber helps you because it's slowing down the delivery of those sugars. When you do have them, it's not allowing your insulin to spike so much. This scientifically has been proven to reduce an insulin spike by 13%. When you do 2 packets in one sitting, say you do have that breakthrough where you want those sugars, you have 2 packets of this, it reduces the insulin spike by 28%. That's huge metabolically. So once you start getting that insulin level down and start actually getting energy to your body, you're going to start to see those sugar cravings go away. That's what helped me with mine. That's what helped. And this also helps you feel full before you eat and stay full long after you eat because it's slowing down the delivery. So I was right away, I started feeling like I didn't need to eat as much. I didn't need to eat as often. And my sugar cravings started going away right away. So now, dietarily, what are you going to do to help that? So, yeah. So what I want everyone to do, whether you try the system or not, the system makes all of this so much easier and much more sustainable. I get it. Um, Not all of you are ready to dive into that yet. So what I would tell you is this. I have an ebook that you can get from that same link where you find the products. It's at about halfway down the page of my my landing page, but just go to my profile, tap on that picture, white box taps, come up, tap on that again, and it's going to take you to my profile page. Download the ebook so that you have it to look at and you have some more direct information as to why this. Okay, so what I'm going to tell you is I want you to get fiber in first before you eat, every time you eat, because that fiber is slowing down the delivery of those sugars. It's not taking all of them away, but it helps slow down so it's not like that freight train hitting your bloodstream all at once. It's delivering it in a manner that the insulin doesn't have to spike so high to take care of it. And now you're starting to become more insulin sensitive. So fiber first. I do this because I don't have time, brain space, energy, refrigerator space, patience, all that to remember to eat all the right foods all the time. I'm also traveling a lot, or I was. I manifested slowing down on the travel because I got exhausted from traveling so much. When I travel, I don't have the opportunity to have all of that all the time. This makes sure I get the fibers I need every time before I eat. I drink it. I put it in water in a bottle, shake it up, drink it 10 minutes before I eat. I only put about this much water in that bottle and drink it up. I'm doing this 3 times a day now because I'm trying to encourage my gut microbiome to reset so I can hopefully get some of the rest of this weight off. Now, fiber first. That could be, if you're doing this, I want you to focus more on the dark green vegetables that grow above ground. Peppers and stuff, yeah, they're okay. They're a little bit higher in sugar. So like asparagus and broccoli and green beans, those are all great things. Peas are a little bit higher in sugar. But if you're eating if you get the shell part, you're getting a tremendous amount of fiber. If you're just eating the pea part, you're getting less fiber. Um, the fruits I would focus on, and I would try to get the fruits in after you're done eating because they're higher in carbohydrate load. But the two fruits that I would suggest, or two types, are pears and berries. Low on the glycemic scale, high in fiber, and a lot of other really great nutrients. So things like strawberries, raspberries, blueberries are all great. They spike your insulin less. The pears are great. Same thing. They spike your insulin less. They're really high in fiber, but they also have some of these chlorogenic acids that I was talking about present. So it's helping with mood, and satiety and all of that in a small amount in the pears. Then what you want to do is you want to prioritize protein. So before you start focusing on potatoes and breads and pasta and rice, I want you to think about what your protein looks like. I'm not an expert on vegan protein, so you're going to have to figure that out. But actually, there's a list. Dr. Is it from Dr. Jockers has a list that I've linked there on what types of proteins you can eat to get your protein in, whether you're carnivorous, whether you're kind of mid-range, or whether you're vegan. Those are there. I can't tell you on this live because I'm not vegan. But you want to prioritize protein. And why protein? So protein spikes your insulin less than your carbohydrates will. It spikes it about half as much, but it's giving you a good amount of energy, and you need that protein to build muscle. Crazy is when we think of muscle, most of us think of skeletal muscle, the stuff that moves us around. But what I want you to understand is that your heart, your liver, your kidneys, all of those internal organs are muscle tissue. If they're not getting the nutrient of protein that they need, they're not doing the job they need to either. So protein is important. Also, our muscles, when we have a healthy amount, I'm not talking bodybuilder type amount, I'm talking a normal, healthy amount, walking around human being amount of muscle, that protein helps keep that muscle active. Active muscles help keep insulin down because they like to eat that energy up. But you need the protein to build them. And that helps keep you satiated more than any other of the macronutrients, protein. So fill up with protein. Then you want to go to fats. I'm not talking about hugely high amounts of fats, but I do believe that most of us are not getting in the right kind of fats. So trans fats can cause inflammation, and it can cause that negative gut microbiome to flourish as well. So all of those potato chips and most of your baked goods and the foods that you eat when you eat out, those are all saturated in trans fats. Try to stay away from those and instead lean into healthier fats. Avocado and olive oil are great fats. They're plant-based, giving you some more monopolyunsaturated, saturated fat that helps your metabolism and helps your insulin resistance. So those in my kitchen, I don't use avocado oil, just never have, but I use extra virgin olive oil. Then you want to focus on things like, and Dr. Pickman and Dr. Bolsowitz are going to differ on this, but butter, ghee, and then the animal fats. Now, it's interesting, you need protein and fats together. Your protein needs fats to metabolize correctly and to build your muscle cells correctly, and I can get into that later. Fiber needs to always be paired with carbohydrates because it's slowing down the delivery of those carbohydrates into your system. So you're going to get in a good amount of fiber first, and for me that just looks like drinking a drink that I drink 10 minutes before I eat. Then I prioritize protein. So my day today, I'll go over what that's going to look like for me. And then I will also fill up with fats. And I'm going to limit my carbs. Today I'm going to try and keep my carbs at a very minimum because I just came off a 48-hour fast. And then the next 3 days I'm going to do this, prioritize protein and fats. And I mean, I'm always getting in fiber. And that's what you're going to do. You want to limit the carbs and put them last. Now you're full of the things that don't spike your insulin as high, and you're getting the carbs in last. And if you're confused about why I'm saying fiber and yet this is carbohydrates, put a 1 in and I'll try and go over that, and we'll explain why. And part of the reason why I love my packet of plant-based fibers over trying to eat it all. Then what the other two things in that ebook are this: to help you get your PCOS and your insulin resistance under control and all the other things you're dealing with. I want you to try some intermittent fasting. And so for most of us, that's, again, a 16-8 fast. So that just means if you have dinner around 6 p.m., you're going to wait 16 hours before you put more food or energy in your system. Is it going to cause you to lose muscle? No. Being insulin resistant is going to cause you to lose muscle. So 6 p.m. to 6 a.m., you're already at 12 hours. If you have a dinner at 6 p.m. and you make it till 10 a.m. the next morning, guess what? That was 16 hours of fasting. Could you do that? And then you just eat in that 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. window and try to keep it to 2 meals and stop all the snacking. Now, because this shuts down my hunger, sometimes if I'm hungry in the afternoon, I'll just have an extra one of these. Sometimes I just have an extra one of these because it does fill up my gut. I tend to be, with ADHD, a nervous and anxious person. This helps soothe my gut, but it shuts down those hunger pains. Now I'm not having candy bars. I'm not having all the things that spike my insulin. I'm keeping my insulin low because neither one of those spike your insulin, and I'm doing fantastic throughout the day. The last thing is move your body. You guys understand, and I shied away from this because there was so much information saying that at my age that intense workout was actually causing higher cortisol, and so I'm learning as we go too. But working with Dr. Jones, I'm understanding as we age, it's even more important to do weight-bearing exercise. So I'm not talking about cardio. It can start out with walking. It can start out with doing some of those things. But you need to start putting weight-bearing exercise into your day if you want to get control of your insulin resistance, if you want to age healthy as a woman or man, but especially as a woman, you've got to do some weight-bearing exercise. Am I talking that I want you to build heavy, bulky muscle? No, but the fact is most of us don't have healthy muscle on our system right now, and we need to take care of that. Now, that muscle that you're building, when it's taking up 25 to 30% of your body, the skeletal muscle, that's going to be, when you're working it, it's going to be more open to taking in insulin. It can be one of the most insulin receptive tissues in your body. So you want it needing more insulin so that it's taking that level down and helping you become insulin sensitive. Muscle can do that even in a resting state, but you've got to work the muscle to get it big enough to start doing that. So fiber, protein, fats, limit your carbs, do some intermittent fasting, and move your body. Okay? That's what you need to start doing to start getting it under control. Yeah, and this is true, Katerina. So that's absolutely true. So she said, I can't start my day with pancakes or donuts or anything sweet, or you'll chase sugar all day. And so let's talk about that really quick, because that's absolutely real. What you start your day with is what you set your body up to need and want for the rest of the day. So if you switched from that to something like eggs and whatever kind of protein, I like eggs and steak. I'll add avocado in the morning for some healthy fats. But when I fill up with those healthy proteins and fats in the morning, if I have my morning meal, then I'm satiated throughout the day. I focus on sugar less because I'm not craving that. Interesting enough, our food industry has understood this, right? Is there a reason fiber has been stripped from our foods? Is there a reason they don't put healthy fats in our foods? Is there a reason everything is flavored with sugar? Absolutely. Because the food industry knows that sugar is causing all of this. It's keeping you hungry. So when you have those pancakes, those donuts, those whatever for breakfast, even a bagel, you guys, how do you guys do bagels and cream cheese for breakfast? Insulin resistance in the making. So when you're doing all of those things, then you're just an hour or two later, you're hungry again and you want more of that, right? You want more breads, you want more sugar, you want more of whatever. But I'm going to challenge you if you start doing that protein. I love eggs. I try to get in, and eggs are only about 8 grams of protein. Let's talk about that too. So I try to get in 3 eggs. So that's 8, 16, 24 grams of protein just in the eggs. And then I add some meat and some fats. And now I should be between 30 and 40 grams of protein in the morning in my first meal in my break fast. So sometimes Most of the time that's around 12. Sometimes it's around 10. But now I'm not as hungry throughout the day because the protein and the fats are doing their job. So protein. My daughter is taking a class to be a dietitian, and she's studying a lot about nutrition. And so she shares some of the stuff with me too. I get all this information from all these wonderful places. I didn't know this piece of information, so I want to share it with you guys. When it comes to protein, if you're doing those things that are protein bars and you're getting like 12 grams of protein, you're getting under 20 grams of protein, and you're thinking, oh, I've added protein to my day, and you're kind of doing the snackety snack thing to get the protein in, let's talk about that, because what the science is saying is that if you're getting in less than 20 grams of protein and more like 30 grams of protein, your body's not really metabolizing it in the way that you think. So it actually just gets excreted or it gets stored as fat. So in order to get that building, muscle nourishing type of protein, you need to get in 20 to 30 grams of protein. And most of us need to get in about 40 grams per sitting. But under 20 grams of protein, and what you're doing is really just contributing to fat or overworking your kidneys trying to get rid of it, because it can't use also protein. Yeah, so fats need to be paired with that for it to metabolize correctly. And then the fats also, let's talk about this, as you're building muscle, there, if you look at the meats that you eat, there's like this little thin layer of marbling around the muscle tissue in the meats that you were eating. That tissue, that membrane that holds the muscle together, is made up of fat. And that's true for us too. So when you're seeing this prevalence of all of a sudden of these athletes who are having these high workouts and they're doing creatine, which is adding water into their muscle, and so they're expanding their muscle really big, and they're doing these intense workouts, which is expanding the muscle even more, but they're doing low-fat diets. Now that membrane around the fat of the muscle, is thin and brittle, and it breaks. And so the muscle just like bursts out into everything else, and it's called rhabdomyolysis, and that's what's happening, is too much trying to get their muscles, trying to get too much to their muscles, not paying attention to getting in fats with their protein, and now they have this problem, and it's devastating. Always get fats with your protein. And I'm not talking about over amount of fats. Just make sure you're getting fats in, and stop buying low-fat milk, low-fat yogurt, low-fat blah, 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 blah. That's keeping you hungry, and it's not really doing much for you, okay? Yeah, and when you are sugar addicted, you tend to feel sluggish more. So, hard-boiled eggs are great. I have hard-boiled eggs in my kitchen. This comes from my daddy. He used to make him over easy eggs all the time, so the runny, soppy eggs. And at first I was like, gross, but because I loved my dad so much as a young person, I started learning to eat them. And now it's just kind of like a connection to my dad. I love them over easy like that. I also love them poached, but hard boiled. And one of my favorite things over the holidays is deviled eggs. I try to keep the sugars low in that. So the olive oil, anyway, mustard doesn't have a lot of sugar, so I love deviled eggs as well. Great sources of protein and fats. Now, on metformin. So again, I'm not a big proponent of most medications. Metformin, out of all of them, is probably the one that is the best. However, my doctor put me on metformin when I was diabetic and continually out of control, and I got really sick. Understand, with metformin, you can get very nauseous, you can have diarrhea, you can have body aches and pains. I felt worse on metformin than I did any other time. I ditched the metformin. I started this system. I got better. My doctor called me up and said, your numbers are all normal. Your blood pressure is coming down. You're losing weight. What are you doing? And I haven't filled any prescriptions in 2.5 years. Not one. Okay? So I'm off of all prescription medications. I don't do any of those things. I just do the system. Now, it's addressed almost everything up here. Do I have some insulin resistance? As in, I've had insulin resistance for 40 years. Yeah, I'm not a proponent of it. I mean, if you're doing it, that's fine. How are you doing on it, though? And how long have you been on metformin? Because if you're still having insulin resistance and those things, is it working for you? One thing, a keto, I wouldn't call it keto, Katerina. I'm going to tell you, you need to get in more fiber. I'm not saying you can't have those. And so there's some interesting stuff also coming out now, as in when people are going on really low carbohydrate diets, you're actually causing you to be more likely to become insulin resistant, so or have insulin dysregulation problems. When you remove all carbohydrates from your diet, what current science is showing is that now you have trained your body not to want or utilize carbohydrates at all. So then when you do have them, now you have this big, huge jump in insulin and you have some dysregulation because your body doesn't know what to do it. That's why I like a middle of the road approach. I did keto for 10 years and still ended up sick. Okay. I very, very, very much advocate for a middle of the line approach. I was reading from Dr. Bolsowitz, some of the problems with keto too causing problems with gut microbiome. So if you want to not have all of those issues and still address your insulin, I want you to know that dropping below 50 grams of carbohydrates may not be the rule, but it may just be that the carbohydrates you eat, you need to focus on them being low glycemic. And I do have a list, I haven't put it out yet, of foods that are good, a little bit worse, and try to avoid for all of this. But understand that fibers are carbohydrates. So greens, spinach, all of that is carbohydrates. So if you're just counting carbohydrates and counting fat and counting protein, then you're missing out on all the fiber that you need in your diet. Part of the reason I do this is because I did keto for 10 years and I learned to work all of that out of my system. And so now I'm trying to learn to eat more of those natural carbohydrates more as I go. And again, science is showing that when you dysregulate the sugar so low, then all of a sudden you maybe want to have a bite of something nice when you're with your family and friends. Your body doesn't know what to do with it. So again, middle of the road approach is where I go. Focus on fiber first, prioritize protein on your plate, and then get healthy fats in and limit the rest of the carbohydrates till the last. If you have room, you can have them then or have them as a treat once in a while. So I'm absolutely not talking about keto, but go download that 6 Simple Steps book. I would encourage you to check out the system because it really is the one thing that worked for me. I always say 10, I was on 13 different medications because 3 of them were for pain and muscle problems, hydro, norco, and gabapentin for all of that. I don't take any of those anymore. I couldn't sleep through the night because I was in so much pain. So I had to cycle through pain medications and muscle relaxers just to sleep at night. It doesn't cost any money for the ebook. That's free. You just download it, and then if you decide to do the system, then you just let me know, and we get you started on the system. The ebook is absolutely free. It's my gift to you guys to get you started and understanding what you need to do to help your health, okay? And then I will also work on this week getting that food list up. I just got it pulled together the other day. So it's going to take me a minute to go back into my systems to remember how to upload that, but I will get that done as well. Okay. So yeah, absolutely free, you guys. The ebook does not cost you anything. I'm not going to hound you. I'm not going to bug you. I hate when I opt into something and now I'm getting an email a day or emails every twice a day or whatever. I don't do that to you guys. I promise. You'll maybe get an occasional email from me to update you on something, but I'm not going to inundate you with emails and texts and all that stuff. And it doesn't cost you anything. Just, I want people to get healthy. So utilize that. Okay, so any other questions from any of you guys before we go on? I will be back around the same time tomorrow morning. We're going to talk a little bit more about all this. You guys, if you did do, oh man, I can't wait till Tuesday night. We're going to talk with Dr. Jones again about this 48-hour fast. One of my guys did, he started and he made it through his first 24-hour fast. And now he's going to try to make it to 36 hours this week. And then next week, try to make it to 48 hours. There's a whole lot of science about the benefits between 24 and 36 hours with fasting and becoming insulin sensitive. I do want to say something too. On my daughter's live, she does the same thing as I do. She does it in Spanish. So I can drop her link in here. But if you have Spanish speaking people who need to hear the message, please follow my daughter. I'll get you that link. You have Hashimoto's and you're not supposed to fast. Isn't that interesting? Because I had Hashimoto's and I've found great results through fasting. Have they told you why you're not supposed to fast with Hashimoto's? And so there's a lot of information out there. So this guy on my daughter's live the other day said, well, there's science that says fasting makes you more insulin resistant, as in, again, the same thing with the removing sugars. But he was talking about those extended fasts. That science that came out, because I read the paper, is about extended long-term fasting. It's not about intermittent fasting or short-term fasting. So, Jojo, I would encourage you, if you would like to, join us next Tuesday night at 8 p.m., where Dr. Jones, who is actually working with me, can explain why fasting is so much beneficial to all of this. And by the way, there are links between Hashimoto's and insulin resistance. So it causes stress on the thyroid. Jojo, I would love to look that up and see where they're getting that, because Dr. Jones is actually saying for thyroid, I'm supplementing with a natural thyroid to get it more optimal. My thyroid hormones, my T3, my T4, are back in normal range, but my free thyroid, which is my, gosh dang it, I'm not thinking of it. That one was in low, so we're trying to optimize that to help me with the weight loss. But I'm still doing the fasting, and actually, before I did the fasting in the system, none of my thyroid panels were in range at all. So I'm really encouraged with that. Also, my progesterone, my DHEA, my estrogen, and my testosterone are all in normal range now as well. So the system that I'm doing and a little bit of fasting, I attribute to all of that because I'm not on any medications except for this thyroid supplement now. Your resting blood pressure has gotten to 100. If you're talking of not talking blood pressure, you're talking about pulse. So if it's 100 with palpitations, I would definitely get that checked out. That's nothing to mess with. If you're having palpitations with or without that, and it's consistent like that, I would absolutely go have it checked out. Okay, so yeah, there we go. The TPO antibodies. So Jojo, what are you doing that got your antibodies up? I also, while you're typing that in, can I drop a little knowledge and you can take a look at it? I've done videos in the past. I know I've been so distracted this last month with moving and a number of other things and the holidays. I haven't been doing good with videos. That's on my New Year's resolution, to take care of you guys better by giving you information. So I'm going to do that. Does fasting affect Hashimoto's? And I want to also do a video on Hashimoto's and insulin resistance. And then I would love for you to come back Tuesday night at 8 Eastern and listen to Dr. Jones and ask him some of these questions, because he has a number of people who are doing this and they actually have Hashimoto's like I did. So Hashimoto's, where was I going? This is kind of a broad link. So I want to make the link up because I'm like kind of the connecting the dots person in my own head, right? I'm not the super science person. I love science, but I'm not a science doctorate, right? But when we have insulin resistance, and I've been talking all morning about the gut microbiome and it being imbalanced, that causes some inflammation in your gut. When we look at the largest single organ in our system, it's going to be your intestinal tract. So when you stretch that out, it's a long tract. So there's like trillions, trillions of bacteria in our gut. And when they're overloaded and negative and creating inflammation, that leaks out into every other system. Now, there has been some link between this negative gut microbiome, which is driven by insulin resistance, and the fact that it's leaching out and causing problems with the thyroid. And then the body thinks that the thyroid is causing the problem, so it starts attacking the thyroid, Hashimoto's. And one doctor that I recently listened to said, and he is a specialist in autoimmune, said that all autoimmune disease is linked to inflammation, and most of that is linked to the gut. So that was like, oh, okay, everything that I'm reading and understanding is making sense. There's a doctor who's actually like putting all of those links together. So if we go, inflammation in the gut is causing a majority of the autoimmune diseases, and we start to take care of the inflammation in the gut, which is all I did. And now you can start with taking care of that, and then the other things start to get better. I'm 2.5 years in, and this is the first panel. The only things that were out of range were my cortisol. My evening cortisol was a little bit out of range. And I can't remember what else, but everything else, all my hormones, everything else was within range. And all I've done in the last 2.5 years is the system and this way of eating. And isn't it crazy that we can fix that or address that with natural food and a little bit of a lifestyle change? Not a big drastic, oh my God, I got to go carnivore and eat red meat and butter the rest of my life, or I got to ditch all the meat and have only vegetables and fruits, and there's so much conflicting information. A middle of the road approach by adding in some fiber and some tea that helps me stay satiated, fixed all of that. So thank you for agreeing with that thought process. I love it. I mean, it's not for everybody. I get that. And if it's not, that's fine. I hope you find who you do agree with. But for me, that's the way it goes. And I think I got to find it because I haven't posted a video on Hashimoto's for a while. So it's fine for me to talk about me all the time, right? But what I will do is find, so look for that in the next 2 days, Jojo. I'll be doing a video on the link between Hashimoto's and insulin resistance. I will try to do something on fasting and Hashimoto's, and I will go back and find one of the success stories of one of the ladies who had Hashimoto's, because there's more than one, but I really don't do great at getting up success stories, and I should do better. But so I'll get you a success story on Hashimoto's, dealing with the system and getting the gut microbiome in order, getting the answer about fasting and Hashimoto's the best I can, and then the Hashimoto's linked to insulin resistance. So I'll try and get those done today. Making a video, you guys, takes a little over an hour for a 1 to 2 minute video. So have some patience, and I appreciate that. But I'll get those videos out, Jojo, and I hope to see you Tuesday night so we can dive into this a little bit more with Dr. Jones, because I have a broad understanding. Like I'm a layperson like the rest of you guys, but so in the last week I'm upping the game. So Dr. Ahmed, who's a cardiologist, and I'm going to share some of his stories on my page now, who's on the system. He's had tremendous results for himself and now recommends it to his patients, was on my live yesterday. And then I'm doing this committed live every Tuesday night at 8 with Dr. Jones, and we're going to talk about fasting and how to get better. So look for those things. In the meantime, it's been just about an hour and a half. So I'm going to look at hopping off and getting to making these videos and see what I can do to help answer questions for you guys. I appreciate you guys hanging out with me. I appreciate you asking questions, and we'll see you tomorrow morning, okay? Or Tuesday night. Have a great day, everybody, and thanks for interacting. Melba, it's so good to see you. All right, bye, guys.